I've often complained in my life at the failure of my tools to express accurately what I see. And of course, I've been mocked, and appropriately mocked, by having the quote hurled back at me, "An artist always blames his tools." Right. We're always looking for excuses instead of just doing the work. But the reality is that I see a world that I cannot actually express because I see something, I take a photograph, I look at the photograph after, and I go, no, that's not what I saw. There's something in my brain that whatever technology we've created to record visual things doesn't translate what I see accurately to me so that I can convey it to someone else. So I'm always dealing in approximations, right? I mean, it helps me accept the inaccuracies, but it's also just a tactic admission that there's something in our tech that doesn't connect with the way my brain sees the world. There is some tech that will do it. Like I see images that I go, oh yeah, but it's, a $5,000 Hasselblad. Or now with video tech, it's like, I'm working with an iPhone, which is incredible in what it can do. Not complaining. I'm just saying. I can't really afford the tools to do what I want to do. And one of the things I love is high contrast in the distance, various things that require lenses, lenses and cameras that I don't have. So I'm trying to force tools that were not designed to do what they're doing to do what I want them to do. And that itself is interesting artistically, right? Working at the edge of capacity. Suddenly I was like, oh, that's a subject in and of itself. It's kind of meta. And what that did is it allowed me to work at the edge of my capacity. So it's like, well, I don't know anything about oils, so let's do a painting in oils, I don't know anything about, whatever, video editing. So let's jump in and learn filmmaking. Let's learn video editing or whatever, work at the edge of your capacity. Talking Heads, I think, recorded an album where they did that. They all switched instruments. They were playing instruments they were not particularly proficient at on that album, and it gave it this kind of raw edge. Apocryphal story, probably. Anyway, certain lighting, certain things in the distance, things that I obsess over visually every day, I can't actually take a picture of in any way that translates what I see. I can take a picture and then I can tell you, you get the idea. Except you don't. I mean, maybe. How do we know? How do we know that what we're explaining to another human being is actually translated in their mind in the way we saw it? Well, we don't know, but we know that it isn't. Right? We can compare notes. We can say, how did you see this event? And I do that. I as kind of an autistic adult, I don't always have a good frame of reference, theory of mind about the other person. So I ask questions, how do you see this? How do you think about that? And I have realized over time that people see things very differently. You can't, I think that our default assumption as humans is to think a thing and think that everyone thinks that thing. And then it turns out that just really isn't true. People have their ways of looking at things and they can be quite different. And it may be because our visual experience, our internal experience is actually quite different. Just the way our brains organize information. There's a base structure evolutionarily. Like, for example, nerves and arteries. You think, well, these patterns, these complex ways they weave in and out of the muscles and bones, you think all that's programmed in the DNA? Apparently not. The basic structure is, but precisely whether this artery goes to the left of this muscle or to the right of this muscle, it varies from human to human or animal to animal, right? And sometimes that causes complications, and sometimes it solves complications. Evolution is always experimenting, apparently, is the way it's explained to me. So people have different plumbing in their bodies because it's not always the same. So if that's true, maybe we have different wiring. Well, we know we have different wiring. We can see it. MRIs and stuff. People's brains are wired differently. We just have to begin to accept that about each other. Some of the things that I just have sometimes found shocking when I realized how different my perception was from someone else's. That's a kind of a sign of maturity, is the waking realization that everyone is really unique, and that those uniquenesses, to coin a phrase, all have value, all have different potential impact and contribution to the culture as a whole, and need to be held up and celebrated, right? Difference is not a threat, the other that must be bordered and boundaried against. It's an opportunity for fusion. I don't know. I'm just an artist.